Welcome back to another What I Draw in a Day, the second installment. On this day, I was working on a new commission. The person who commissioned me wanted me to do a sort of take on a piece that I made last year. So it's the same two characters, but they're in a different setting and sort of connecting with each other in a different way. So what I started to do was just get some inspiration. I like to sometimes just go on Pinterest and look at some inspiration just to kind of get ideas and get excited about the piece. I was looking at some classic old school illustration, Bob Peak, Austin Briggs, stuff like that. I had a little thumbnail that I was working from in my sketchbook, and then I went to a larger layout on tracing paper. I like to do my preliminary drawings on tracing paper just to kind of work stuff out. Tracing paper is very low stakes and very cheap also, so it feels good to just be able to go through sheet after sheet until you get it right. Speaking of getting it right, I couldn't quite get it right with that male character there. Just couldn't get his gesture and his pose down. So what I decided to do was pose for myself, make some photo references. This is something that I will do from time to time when I can't get a pose right. Some of the greatest illustrators throughout history would oftentimes work with real life models and do like all out photo shoots. So if they could do that, I could probably just take out my cell phone and snap a few shots of myself. Here is me just sort of embarrassingly getting into the pose of my character. If anyone was ever to find my phone and go through my photo albums, they would find the weirdest photos that make absolutely no sense of me just in strange poses and acting out weird scenarios. But hey, if it helps the final drawing, it's all worth it. And in this case, it did help. Once I got back to the tracing paper with my reference nearby, it just kind of guided me and I was able to capture that pose a little bit more accurately. Whenever I'm working with reference, I'm not super loyal to one particular picture, whether it's a picture I take of myself, someone else, or something that I find online. Oftentimes, I like to work with a variety of different pictures. And then in my mind, I sort of superimpose them all together to create one brand new piece that I'm drawing. Anyway, that would be my tip if you're struggling with reference and maybe it's making your work look a little too stiff. I like to just work from a variety of different pieces and remember that the reference is there to be informed by, not necessarily to just straight up copy. Getting that male figure down actually then helped me work on the female character a lot better. I just drew her from my head, but I was able to react to that other figure that was there, and it allowed me to create a drawing that felt more realistic, at least in its pose and its gesture. So sometimes if you get one character right, the other character kind of just falls into place. And then I kept just chipping away at this drawing, so much so that I got all those pencil smudges all over my hand. It's one of the things that I actually love about working traditionally. You don't get that when you're working on a Cintiq, for instance. I looked up a little bit more reference and inspiration for the character's clothing. Ultimately, for the guy, I landed on a picture of Frank Frazetta. Frank Frazetta is one of the coolest illustrators out there, and certainly he was one of the better dressed illustrators throughout history. So I figured I couldn't go wrong by putting my character in something that was Frank Frazetta inspired. Sometimes when you're working on tracing paper, things could get a little bit gray and a little too smudgy. So in order to sort of delineate some of those lines, especially one character from the other, I sometimes just like to take a marker or a pen and kind of refine some of those lines. And it also helps make the lines darker so that ultimately when I then lightbox this, the lines underneath will be dark enough to see. And just as I looked up some reference for the dude, I looked up some reference for the female character as well and tried my best to apply that to my sketch. I worked on that a little bit longer, and then later in the day, I put in some dedicated time to my comic. For those of you who might remember, I created a short story in February where I drew a panel a day for the whole month of February. Well, now it's months later, and I'm just redoing those pages, refining what I did and just improving upon it and hopefully making like a really cool short story that will be ready soon. I'm working on it in between a bunch of other stuff. If you're interested in staying more up to date with the progress behind this comic, definitely follow me on my Patreon. That's where I'm posting most of the process for this comic. And that's it. That's all I drew on this day. If you'd like to see more videos like this, let me know. Thanks so much for watching. I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.